Now, what am I saying in essence? That the Honorable Minister of Information calling for the Nigerian public relation professionals to sell the public image of Nigerians to the international communities, to world investors, is just a deceptive call, because those who are the marketing Nigerians are from the ruling class, the politician, the executive, and the legislative chambers, because with what is unfolding, just as the Transparency International Nigeria has blamed the president for not being transparent in the remittance of the indigenous petroleum company. It is quite unfortunate, to the tune of 500 billion, the October and December 2024 remittances to the federal coffers was not carried out. Over 1.16 trillion was generated, but about 660 billion was remitted. What happens to the 500 billion naira? And according to the World Bank Nigerian Development Update reports, released last week, reveals and indicts, of course, the state-owned company over failure to remit crude revenue to the tune of 500 billion. So who is now demarketing Nigeria? Of course, Amnesty International, the World Bank have their statistics. They are studying the development and monitoring the remittances and the revenue generated for each country. So it is not something that could be hidden under the chefs and the rest of them. So the people piloting the affairs of the country presently or in the past has been severally indicted for corruption, for sponsoring corruption, for spearheading corruption tendencies, lack of transparency, and unaccountability on their part. So when multinationals, when investors study these indices and discover there is no transparency, honesty in the dealings, and there is no any robust legal framework and policy formation that could guarantee the safety of their investments and, of course, their lives and that of their employees, they will not consider coming to the country, because it is a suicidal risk or attempt or mission if they do, because they will definitely lose their investment. There is no guarantee that they will have return on the investment could be guaranteed, and remittance of such to their respective states could be guaranteed. And being that sometimes the forest issue, of course, discrepancy and the rest of them could frustrate them recouping and remitting their interest or gain, returns on investment here. So the Honorable Minister of Information should do a due diligence and tell Nigerians who are responsible for demarketing Nigeria. Despite the tours, several tours, impact private and public, of course, diplomatic tours by the president for the past 2 years or close to 3 years, Tinubu has embarked not less than 100 tours or close to. I mean, but yet telling us that investors from United Arab Emirates, from whatever Singapore, from the rest of the world are coming to invest heavily in Nigeria. But up to this moment, we have not seen. The unfortunate thing is that the multinationals who has been before the president was handed over are leaving the shores of this country because of lack of transparency and honesty in the administration of justice system. there is no rule of law, or perhaps rule of law is not uh, regarded or protected if there are no rule of law and the government is perceived not to adhere to the principles of rule of law and engagement. Of course, how could they guarantee the safety of their own business, enterprise, and investment in Nigeria? So the executive, as the Transparency International Nigeria, has blamed the president, the current president Ahmed Bola Tinubu, who happens to be or majors as the petroleum minister. I have never seen in the world where a president presides as the petroleum minister, and yet things are getting worse. Nigerians could not have access to affordable fuel, premium spirit. It is quite very unfortunate. You major as the chief Grand Commander of the Armed Forces of the President and the Minister of Petroleum under your watch, and unfortunately that is a monumental failure because Nigerians have not seen anything that will justify the level of failure in this administration. Just like the same thing happened during Buhari's time, just the same story extended down to Obasanjo and the rest of them. Is quite unfortunate. So with this crop of leaders and with these tendencies, fraudulent tendencies, lack of accountability and transparency in the monetary funds and revenue, of course, generated from the major source of the national asset, if not transparent, no country will come to invest. Coupled with the state of insecurity, I think the Honorable Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, should do a due diligence rather than just a main rhetorics. He should understood with what is happening. Of course, the world is a global village with the level of devastating assault on the military camps or base by the terrorists. It means, simply implies that the terrorists are gaining upper hand in Nigeria, so no investor could even dare or contemplate coming to Nigeria because it's a terror-ridden region which has high propensity of terrorism advancements rather than economic advancement. Of course, the terrorism have hampered and disrupted the communal and economic activities in most regions. Almost all the regions of this country is no longer safe. Even for investors, most of them have fallen victims of kidnappers and terrorists and the rest of them. Nobody will want to take such risk. For those who, of course, are here are leaving the shores of the country. So the people demarketing Nigeria who should do the due diligence is to repent from such atrocities and allow the rule of law, have regard for the citizens. The office of the citizens should be the most prioritized office. Just imagine in Ibadan yesterday or so, a police gunned down a student going to take seat for WAEC, and they call it it was misfired or whatever, stray bullet. You can imagine that in a society where we have series of killings by those who should protect the citizens, unfortunately taking the lives of the citizens. So the confidence of the threshold confidence, of course, of Nigeria could no longer be tolerated. It has gone abysmally. It has sunk abysmally. So the Minister of Information calling on the Nigerian relation practitioners to sell or market Nigeria to investors. You're just deceiving yourself because you know what is the problem. No investor will come to invest in a country that is not safe. Insecurity, government policies and implementations, the regards implementations, legal implementations and interpretations are not clear. They are vague. and the uncertainty continue to envelop the entire sphere, you don't expect such people to waste their multi-billion investment in Nigeria. Some are relocating, a majority of them have relocated to other African countries where they could have guarantee of their returns on investment and of course have peace and security for their workforce or employees and them themselves, because they could not transverse the horrible trajectory within this Nigerian enclave. It is quite very unfortunate. So those who should be blamed mostly are the ones in the seat of power, controlling. The Minister of Information should be able to educate Nigerians why under his watch as the Minister of Information, he could not unravel the reason why the Boko Haram are still unleashing mayhem, the reason why Nigeria has the highest IDPs, internally displaced persons, and yet we say we are not at war. Of course, with external forces, but at war with itself. And within the Nigerian defined territories, Nigerians are being killed, held hostage, molested, assaulted, raped, hacked to death. Even the military personnel are not left out in these victimizations and conspiracy by the state actors, because the past president of Nigeria, or head of states, Abacha said, when insecurity, unrest persists beyond 24 hours, then the government is behind it. The government is sponsoring it. The government is benefiting from it. And these realities could no longer be deniable in today's world, especially in Nigeria today, where even governors are helpless, are crying out. And to make it worse, even the security operatives that should be entrusted with the security and protection of life and property and the territorial integrity of the Nigerian state are plagued. They are being killed and hacked as if they are not just humans. It's quite very horrible. So if there is no transparency, the Serap have demanded for accountability and explanation why 500 billion should be missing, not remitted to the Federal Treasury by the indigenous company or state-owned company, and NNPCL. It is a very worrisome development. But with this and many more indices, it will hamper and foster any foreign investors. Even the local investors are not surviving. They are suffocating, of course, due to epileptic power supply, insecurity, and the rest of them. The inconsistency in all these parameters and factors that could drive economy has led to this economic quagmire where Nigerians are struggling, the inflation biting hard, unfortunately life becoming most unbearable for majority. Over 80% of the Nigerian populations are regarded as extremely poor. In fact, by the projection of the World Bank, comes 2027, more Nigerians would have sunk more in poverty. You know what that means? And the Honorable Minister of Information are not digesting, interpreting this, of course, to the Nigerian populace. It is quite unfortunate. As the Minister of Information and National Retention, you should, of course, be more engaging and sensitizing the people on what are the policies of the government, if at all there is anyone geared towards lifting people out of poverty. That is the essence of government. In any responsible government, they seek how to alleviate the sufferings, the pains, agony of their citizens. But unfortunately, the reverse is the case here in Nigeria. The poor are getting more poorer, of course, and the rich are getting more richer, especially those within the political sphere. Is quite unfortunate. As another group has discovered, about 6.93 trillion pardon in the current budget is quite unfortunate by the National Assembly. Allegedly, it is quite unfortunate if such humongous amount could be padded in the budget. Then what does that mean? That systemic corruption has destroyed the fabric of existence of Nigeria, and no country the world over could survive such level of criminality, fraud, inconsistency, lack of transparency, and unaccountability, state-sponsored terrorism, and the rest of them. It is quite unfortunate where people are being subjected to all manner of cruelty, suffering, and perpetual servitude. Nobody, of course, lifting a helping hand, no subsidizing, no any government programs or palliative to cushion the effects of the burdens, overburdened transactions and economic burden on the Nigerian people. Everybody to himself. No healthcare system or scheme that could people could access affordable healthcare systems. Unfortunately, the healthcare system is in shambles, in comatose, where Nigeria is being reported that Nigeria is deficit of over 300,000 medical personnel, doctors, just needless to say about the nurses and the rest of them. So you can understand the level of predicament, the multifaceted monsters bedeviling Nigerian state. With all this and many more, of course, which of the investors will want to invest? Because the political uncertainty, of course, is another factor that play a vital role. If there is no stability in the political sphere, some persons believing that possibly the military could take over any moment from now. Even the military are fed up with what is happening because they have been affected as well. They could not cope with the economic mishap. Their revenue or remunerations no longer, of course, meet with the realities of economic realities today. And what does that mean? Everybody is in the state of perplexity, in the state of uncertainty. With the information minister calling for a sellable state that the public relation professionals should market the Nigeria for what? You don't need to market Nigeria. If Nigeria is sellable or insurable, if I may use the word insurance term, of course, it will attract naturally investors will hunt, of course, will come to Nigeria to invest. You don't need to travel the whole world claiming you are weighing them. They are seeing the indices, they are seeing the red flags, and they don't want to dare, of course, make such uncalculated risks. So the orientation minister or Minister of Information should do a due diligence, do his assignment work, speak to the president, the legislatures, and everyone concerned who has been directly demarketing Nigeria, sending such killer waves and signals of uncertainty to the public domain or out there. So they should be the one to be held responsible for destroying the public reputation and confidence in the Nigerian economy, state, and political sphere. It's quite unfortunate. Let's hear your take regarding this development. And of course, it's a very clear message to the Minister of Information that he should learn how to count his teeth with his tongue, and that rather than trying to deceive the gullible masses or shifting blame to the masses, let them provide information why over 500 billion is missing, is not being remitted to the federal coffers by the state-owned petroleum industry. The NNPC is quite a very disturbing development. And one bank revelations and the rest of them is there to speak for itself, and nobody can deny that. let's hear your own take regarding this development. It's quite a very worrisome state. Obasanjo, Buhari, Tinubu is quite unfortunate that Jonathan was not captured in this case, showing that there is a fair playing ground and some elements of transparency within the Jonathan administration. But that is not to say that corruption is totally dealt with. Of course, there could be or perceived some element of corruption, but with Obasanjo, Buhari, Tinubu, it's a very pathetic state and very worrisome. Of course, with this development, some are of the opinion that Nigeria goes nowhere. In fact, is in the state of despondency, the state of a possible collapse with the realities unfolding. Let's have your own take regarding this development. Thanks for watching.